往巅峰自爆，也算聊胜于无。
哥，
真是疯了，弄到你们3个的财富。
我这就替你报仇。
最后一排，为我者，仅此。自中我，便让你们见识一下我的。眼下就只有见了，却突然冒，让人类蹦出一头怪兽。
Hello everyone, welcome to the Alrasta channel. Here, I will share spoilers for SwallowedStar episode 190. Remember, this is based on the novel, so it won't be 100% similar to the Donghua version. Okay, without further ado, let's dive right into the story. After Kang Jin thrust his spear into Kyochika's stomach, he deliberately unleashed all the energy stored within his body. The powerful explosion, equivalent to the combined attacks of millions of world masters, filled the entire narrow room. The intruders had nowhere to hide and had to defend themselves with all their might. The good news was that Luo Feng managed to survive thanks to his wings and special armor, even though 80% of his body was destroyed, while Kang Jin, who possessed regenerative powers, stood with a cold expression after his body was completely destroyed. In the control room, the 3 remaining tribe members, Pu Ai, Menbu, and La Di Mo, watched the death of their leader with tears in their eyes. They listened to Chu Chika's final message explaining that this was not an escape, but satisfaction after ensuring the safety of their tribe's legacy. He predicted that the wounded intruders would teleport away, giving his 3 successors the opportunity to take the remaining treasure chest and destroy the entrance to prevent future intrusions. With this sacrifice, Chu Chika could finally rest after ensuring the future of his tribe. After the heroic death of Chu Chika, the 3 remaining members of the Yanji tribe, Pu Ai, Menbu, and La Di Mo, swore to continue the fight and not let their leader's sacrifice be in vain. They monitored the situation in the treasure room through a projection system, waiting for the intruders to teleport out so they could retrieve the remaining treasures. Pu Ai explained that in addition to the treasure room containing valuable items, there was also an inheritance room that stored their tribe's secret techniques collected over thousands of years. Inside the locked treasure room, the atmosphere became even more tense after Chika's powerful explosion. Star Fantasy suffered severe injuries with more than 50% of his divine body destroyed, while Purple Clock appeared completely unharmed, which made Kang Jin suspicious. Luo Feng managed to survive thanks to his special defense, but his condition was also weakened. Kang Jin, who possessed regenerative powers, remained in prime condition and began to question Purple Clock's suspicious ability to survive without injury. The intruders then attempted to open the ancient treasure chest bound by 12 chains, but all their attempts failed miserably. Kang Jin tried brute force, Purple Clock used special techniques, and even Luo Feng and Star Fantasy tried, but the chest remained tightly closed. Meanwhile, the 3 members of the Yanji tribe in the control room mocked the intruders' futile efforts, confident that their treasures would never be taken by their enemies. When all attempts failed, Kang Jin began to show his true colors and ordered the other 3 intruders to teleport out first. However, they refused because they were afraid that Kang Jin would follow and destroy their god country. Purple Clock, Star Fantasy, and Luo Feng formed an impromptu alliance against the much stronger Kang Jin. Purple Clock threatened to record everything that happened as evidence, but Kang Jin revealed that the tower blocked all signals and that he could manipulate light and sound to avoid being recorded. The situation reached its peak when Kang Jin openly threatened to kill the other 3 immortal kings one by one to seize their wealth as compensation for not being able to obtain the treasures in this room. He underestimated the severely injured Star Fantasy, but considered Luo Feng and Purple Clock a threat due to their extraordinary survival abilities. Purple Clock was finally forced to take out his last weapon, a black crystal that emitted terrifying energy, threatening to destroy everything if Kang Jin continued to press his advantage. The cramped treasure room now became a life-and-death battle arena for the trapped immortal kings. The tension in the treasure room reached its climax when Purple Clock unleashed his ultimate weapon, an A812 type Fire God Origin crystal. Luo Feng immediately recognized that this crystal was far more powerful than the one he had purchased for 800 million, possibly worth more than 12 billion points due to its explosive power equivalent to 3 peak Immortal Kings. Kang Jin just laughed mockingly because he already knew about Purple Clock's famous trump card, which had been used many times to scare opponents and survive. Even though he admitted that the crystal could damage 5 to 10% of his divine body in this confined space, Kang Jin remained confident that the threat was not enough to kill him. He even decided to kill Luo Feng first because he considered him easier to deal with than Purple Clock, who had dangerous weapons. The situation reached a point of no return when Kang Jin began to burn his divine body to launch a deadly attack, forcing the 3 weaker Immortal Kings to give their all in the final battle. Star Fantasy, already severely wounded, desperately burned his entire divine body in a suicide explosion that only produced 20 to 30% of Chu Chi-Ka's explosive power. Although Kang Jin was slightly shaken, he was not significantly injured and considered Star Fantasy's sacrifice a futile act. Purple Clock then mocked Luo Feng for lacking a divine body to burn like the others, yet he still chose to use his final real weapon. The biggest surprise came when Purple Clock took out an ancient purple clock full of mysterious engravings, a true treasure far more powerful than anything Luo Feng had ever seen before. The clock expanded and engulfed the entire room with a diameter of 16 meters, trapping Kang Jin and Luo Feng inside with no means of escape. Purple Clock revealed that he had been hiding his true power all this time, and that it was this ancient clock that had killed 2 peak Immortal Kings and 1 border Immortal King in the past. In a final cunning move, the Purple Clock placed the Fire God Origin Crystal, A812, inside the ancient clock before detonating it. The deadly combination of the ancient clock's power to focus the explosion and the crystal's power of 3 peak Immortal Kings created an attack that could increase tenfold. Even Kang Jin, who was a limit Immortal King, would have difficulty surviving this focused attack unless he had heavenly armor or treasures equivalent to the ancient clock. Purple Clock smiled smugly, imagining the great riches he would obtain after killing his 2 opponents, including Luo Feng's mysterious defensive treasure that had intrigued him. While fierce battles raged in the treasure room, 3 members of the Yanji tribe in the control room, Pu Ai, La Di Mo, and Menbu, watched with satisfaction and deep hatred. They shouted encouragement for the Immortal Kings to kill each other, considering all other races as enemies who had destroyed their civilization. To them, the 4 peak races that had created a battlefield in their former territory were like lions building an arena by destroying the little rabbits that had inhabited the place first. In the ancient Purple Clock, a violent explosion occurred when the Fire God Origin Crystal exploded with its power focused directly on Kang Jin. Even though Kang Jin was a powerful Immortal King, the focused attack with 10 times the power of 3 peak Immortal Kings explosions left him with no chance of survival. He burned his divine body in a desperate attempt to withstand the attack, but realized that his death was inevitable. In his final moments, Kang Jin remembered his disciples and his master, hoping that one day he could be revived to meet them again. With rage and despair, he decided to destroy himself rather than die passively, creating an explosion equivalent to another Fire God Origin Crystal. The combination of the A812 crystal explosion and Kang Jin's self-destruction created an incredibly terrifying destructive force. Purple Clock, who had been confident of victory, suddenly panicked when he realized that he had lost control of the direction of the explosion. The 2 simultaneous explosions threatened to explode in all directions, which meant that his purple cloak membrane would not be able to protect him completely. In a panic, he burned 26% of his divine body to force both explosions downward, sacrificing most of his power for his safety. The combined power of the 2 explosions directed downward created spectacular destruction. The floor of the treasure room, made of strong G-class metal, was torn and destroyed, creating a hole 6,000 kilometers deep. The 12 chains that bound the treasure chest were thrown far away along with the world ring, spilling out a large number of valuable items. Luo Feng, who was hit by 50% of the Immortal King's explosion, cleverly hid his human body in the inner world and protected his life core with Shu Wu's wings, allowing him to survive the disaster. When the dust began to settle, Purple Clock, who had lost a quarter of his power, was satisfied that he had obtained all the treasures of the dead intruders. Although he had to sacrifice 26% of his divine body, he considered it a very profitable investment because he now possessed Tang Jin's enormous wealth, plus Luo Feng's mysterious defensive treasures, as well as the treasure chest he had long coveted. Greedily, he immediately chased after all the valuable items that had fallen into the newly formed giant pit. The powerful explosion created a straight trench 6,000 kilometers deep with a relatively small diameter, causing thousands of valuable treasures to scatter and bounce off the sidewalls like shards of glass. Purple Clock, despite having lost 26% of his divine body, felt extremely excited at the sight of the countless riches scattered everywhere. He immediately rushed to collect various valuable treasures while planning to buy 2 more Fire God Origin crystals and a training slot at the Flame God Mountain with his new wealth. While Purple Clock was busy collecting treasures from above, Luo Feng, in the form of Moshe disguised as a piece of G-class metal, began collecting valuable items from below. Cleverly, he stored Shiwu's wings in the inner world and used the World Ring to take the most valuable 12-linked treasure chest, Kang Jin's Thunder Spear, various space rings from the dead Immortal Kings, and thousands of other valuable items without being detected by Purple Clock. Purple Clock began to panic when he couldn't find the treasure chest he wanted most, unaware that Luo Feng had already taken it. When he tried to store the metal fragment, which turned out to be Moshe Luo Feng's body, his space ring automatically rejected it because it couldn't store life forms. It was then that Luo Feng revealed himself in his true form with silver wings, shocking Purple Clock, who thought all his enemies were dead. In the control room, the 3 remaining members of the Yanji tribe, Hu-Ai, Ladimo, and Menbu, watched in shock as the seemingly weakest human turned out to be the true winner of this treasure hunt. They realized that the powerful explosion had not only destroyed the treasure room, but also damaged 80% of the functionality of their ancient tower, rendering it nearly useless. Although disappointed at the loss of their physical treasures, they were grateful to have successfully secured their tribe's legacy of techniques and knowledge. Hu-Ai, as the new leader after Qiuqica's death, decided to destroy the tower and return to their god country. There, they announced to the entire tribe the heroic sacrifice of their elders and their success in obtaining the complete legacy of ancient techniques collected before the Great Disaster. Although grieving the loss of their leader, the entire tribe felt a new spirit and hoped to rise again as a strong race, because now they have the foundation of knowledge needed to train future generations and rebuild their nearly extinct civilization. After the 3 members of the Yanji tribe destroyed the access route and left the damaged tower, their focus now shifted to nurturing the next generation of Yanji warriors with the technical heritage they had acquired. Meanwhile, inside the ruins of the tower, tension reached its peak as Purple Clock faced off against Luo Feng. Although only 1.6 meters tall compared to the larger Luo Feng, Purple Clock exudes a dangerous aura with a glowing purple film on the surface of his skin. The 2 warriors acknowledge each other's ingenuity and cunning in the battle that has just ended. Purple Clock admits to having underestimated Luo Feng, while Luo Feng calls Purple Clock more cunning for hiding his true strength and letting other intruders kill each other. Purple Clock is angry because he feels he is entitled to all the treasures after winning the final battle, but Luo Feng reminds him that the treasures actually belong to the Yanji tribe, and as the true survivor, he is the one who has the right to take them. When Purple Clock attacked to reclaim the treasure he considered his, Luo Feng used his superior speed to escape through the tower's winding corridors. Purple Clock, who was injured and had lost a lot of eternal energy, was unable to chase effectively, so Luo Feng managed to get out of the tower first. Once outside the restricted area of the tower, Luo Feng immediately changed his strategy and transformed into the golden-horned behemoth. In the form of a terrifying golden-armored beast with wings and thick limbs, Luo Feng waited patiently in front of the tower's exit, like a giant waiting for ants to come out. When Purple Clock appeared and tried to scan the area to search for the escaping human, he was shocked to find a giant beast that immediately attacked him with huge claws that destroyed the space around him. Although Purple Clock realized that this was a dangerous peak Immortal King, his weakened condition made him unable to fight effectively. After exchanging several attacks and realizing that he could not win in his injured state, Purple Clock decided to teleport away and flee. He began to connect that this golden beast armor was likely an ally of the human he was looking for. possibly the silver-winged Immortal King who had changed colors. After Purple Clock disappeared, Luo Feng returned to human form and reflected on the battle, realizing that even though his golden-horned behemoth possessed the power of a peak Immortal King, it still had weaknesses in terms of law abilities such as teleportation and time manipulation. While Luo Feng calmly left the area in a light-speed ship, Purple Clock, who had fled into the distant cold air, was overcome with rage and obsession for revenge. He clenched his fists in anger, causing an explosion of energy that created a tornado of snow and ice within a 10,000-kilometer radius. With deep hatred, he swore to kill Luo Feng not only for taking what he considered his property, but also for discovering Purple Clock's greatest secret, the ancient clock that was the true source of his power. Inside his control cabin flying across the main continent, Luo Feng raised 2 glasses of wine to commemorate Ye Chen and Star Fantasy, who had fallen in the tower battle. He reflected on the cruelty of the universe, where even peak immortal kings and those at their limits could die in such situations. This traumatic experience reminded him of the advice of his masters, Zhen Yun, Chaos City Lord, and Hu Yanbo's last message through Babata, to always respect the universe and never become arrogant. Luo Feng realized that he had been overconfident after obtaining Shu Wu's wings and gold armor. The battle in the tower proved that special environments could render teleportation and scanning techniques useless, so even Kang Jin, who was skilled in the laws of time, was defeated by the Purple Clock, who was actually weaker. The simultaneous deaths of 5 immortal kings served as a valuable lesson about the importance of constant vigilance in a universe full of unexpected dangers. When Tian Chen, Ye Chen's close friend from the huge Axe Dojo, contacted him through the virtual universe, Luo Feng only provided limited information about the deaths of Ye Chen and Kang Jin. He deliberately did not tell him the full details because he would rather not involve Tian Chen in the ongoing conflict with Purple Clock, who would surely seek him out for revenge. Luo Feng realized that Purple Clock, despite not getting the main chest, still managed to collect half of all the other treasures and could use them to strengthen himself. After the brief meeting, Luo Feng refocused on the greatest treasure he had obtained, the 12-chain chest containing the wealth of the Yanji race. Using his Mosha body's cloning ability, he transformed into the form of Qiuqi with the appropriate token to deceive the chest's security system. The advanced scanning system checked 2 main things: the token and life energy. Thanks to the Mosha body's natural ability to mimic the life energy of other races, Luo Feng successfully opened the chest. What he found inside the chest was truly astonishing. 3 giant world rings containing countless riches. There were mountains of metal, rivers of precious liquids, thousands of E-class ships, and an incredible number of various items. Unbeknownst to Luo Feng, he had just acquired 1% of the entire wealth of the once powerful Yanji race, because the universe venerables of the former Yanji race had placed all their treasures into the sacrificial tower when they realized the destruction of their race was inevitable. This discovery not only made him extremely wealthy, but also made him realize that a great responsibility had fallen on his shoulders as the heir to the wealth of a nearly extinct civilization. Luo Feng couldn't hide his admiration when he realized how extraordinary the treasure left behind by the Yanji race was. His body trembled with excitement. He had just become extremely wealthy and understood why immortal kings like Kang Jin, Ye Chen, and Star Fantasy were so eager to pursue this treasure. They must have known the true value of the riches hidden inside the tower. The 3 world rings contained treasures of varying levels, each accompanied by a message on a metal fragment explaining its contents. The first ring contained treasures for low-level Yanji warriors, world masters, domain masters, up to star level, in quantities large enough to sustain future generations for trillions of years. The second ring is specifically for immortals who will need resources to explore the universe and search for new places to live. However, the third ring is the most surprising. It contains engraved weapons that are the highest achievement of the Yanji race, the universe. Venerable warriors of the Yanji race have developed mysterious engraving techniques over thousands of years, creating less than 100 engraved weapons throughout the universe. The weapon obtained by Luo Feng was the Space Lock Band, a black bracelet similar to the Hazy Star Belt with void engravings inside. This weapon could spread transparent engravings throughout an area and lock the laws of space, making teleportation impossible for anyone within that area. The Space Lock Band has 3 power levels with different area diameters: 10,000 kilometers, 100,000 kilometers, and 1 million kilometers. The larger the area, the more energy is required, so it is recommended to use immortal crystals as an energy source rather than immortal energy. This weapon is perfect for warriors specializing in time law, as it can paralyze the enemy's teleportation abilities while still allowing the user to manipulate time. With great enthusiasm, Luo Feng immediately tried out his new weapon by attaching the bracelet to his left arm and inserting a Fire God Origin crystal worth 200 million points as the energy source. When he activated the lowest level with a diameter of 10,000 kilometers, Yanji's transparent engraving immediately appeared throughout the surrounding area, in the sky, mountains, grass, and ground. Through the spatial senses of his Mosha body, he could feel that the space of the universe within that area was completely locked, with no sense of the laws of space at all, making teleportation impossible. With a satisfied smile, Luo Feng realized that he now had a weapon that would be very advantageous in future battles, especially against the Purple Clock, which relied on teleportation to escape. Luo Feng couldn't hide his enthusiasm when he realized how revolutionary the Space Lock Band he had just obtained was. He understood that the laws of space consisted of 3 main aspects: teleportation, twisting, and locking, and usually only peak immortal kings could master one of them perfectly. With this engraved weapon, he now could lock space without needing years of training to understand the laws, giving him an extraordinary advantage combined with his Shiwu wings. However, his excitement quickly faded when he realized the weapon's extremely high energy consumption. In just 10 seconds using the smallest area, 10,000 kilometers, the Fire God Origin crystal, worth 200 million points, had already drained 1.1% of its energy. This meant that in just 1 minute he would burn 13.2 million points, equivalent to the entire wealth of an ordinary immortal king warrior. This calculation made him realize that this weapon could only be used in life and death situations or absolute crises, as warned by Yanji's ancestors. After spending 7 days calculating his entire wealth through various connections in the virtual network and the Hongmeng Alliance market, Luo Feng was shocked by the results. The first ring was worth 221 billion, the second ring 285 billion, plus the treasures from Kangjin and other immortal kings amounting to 53 billion, for a total of 560 billion Hu Yuan. The engraved Space Lock Band weapon could not even be valued in monetary terms because it was too rare. It could only be exchanged for other valuable items of equivalent worth. Luo Feng then began selling items that were useless to him through various channels, including the Virtual Universe Company, which offered fair prices out of respect for his status as a disciple of the Chaos City Lord. However, the joy of secretly selling his treasures suddenly turned to anxiety when he received a letter from his friend Mo Na asking about the sacrificial tower treasures he had obtained on the Yanji continent. When he met the immortal king Mo Na at a restaurant in the Hongmeng Alliance city, Luo Feng learned that information about his treasure acquisition had spread widely throughout the universe. This news had spread throughout the Yanji continent, and even reached the Star Tower, causing many greedy warriors to start targeting him. Luo Feng immediately realized that only Purple Clock could spread such detailed information, and he raged inwardly, realizing that his enemy had succeeded in making the humble identity of Yang a target for greedy immortal kings who wanted to seize his treasures. Luo Feng had already suspected that Purple Clock was the one spreading the news about the tower's treasure, and now he was even more certain after hearing Mona's report. Purple Clock's crazy character meant he wouldn't hesitate to use dirty tactics like this. Luo Feng was furious inside because Purple Clock had the audacity to not fear that he would retaliate by spreading the secret of Purple Clock's ancient clock. However, he understood the logic behind Purple Clock's actions. Rather than waiting for constant threats, it was better to force a direct confrontation now. Purple Clock had carefully analyzed the situation and realized that if Luo Feng had a way to deal with him, he would not let him get away with it. There was a high possibility that Luo Feng would spread the news about the ancient clock, so it was better for Purple Clock to act first and kill him, before Luo Feng could share information about his own treasure. This was a strike before you are struck strategy that showed just how dangerous Purple Clock was as an enemy. Mona gave Luo Feng wise advice that in the extraterritorial battlefield, which was filled with various races, he had to be fierce towards greedy soldiers and make them afraid. If he showed weakness, more would come to interfere. Luo Feng decided it was time to carry out a massacre, a true bloodbath that would show his strength and scare other soldiers into not daring to interfere without a strong reason. Meanwhile, on the Yanji continent, the news about the tower's treasures had ignited a fire throughout the region. Immortal kings of various races, including the two automaton races that formed an alliance, prepared to hunt down Yang, aka Luo Feng, who was considered weak but possessed extraordinary treasures. Even the immortal Marquises were mobilized to continuously scan and search for Yang, but they could not find him because Luo Feng had already returned to military base number 26. Purple Clock, sitting cross-legged in a dark ice cave, felt anxious because he could not find Luo Feng even though the entire continent had been searched repeatedly. He realized that Luo Feng had great ambitions and was probably waiting for an opportunity to kill him and take the ancient clock. Purple Clock decided to prepare himself well using the nearly 100 billion yuan he had, because he knew that when Luo Feng finally appeared, the battle would be very brutal. Ironically, while the entire Yanji continent was frantically searching for him, Luo Feng was relaxing in a warm pool at military base number 26. He even completed various transactions selling treasures to the Virtual Universe Company and other parties who came directly to the military base. After a month of buying and selling, his total wealth reached 560 billion hunyuan. Now he was planning the best way to use this vast wealth, whether to strengthen the God world, buy weapons from the automaton race, strengthen the Cloud Vine, or order special treasure enhancements for himself. So what happens next? Alright, thank you for watching until the end, and don't forget to support this channel with likes, subscribe, and comments. That's all from me. Bye.